The word on the street is that it's much more difficult to get a job in software engineering. And I wanted to talk a little bit about that by looking at some graphs. One of the graphs is the Fred graph here that talks about software development job postings on Indeed in the United States. If we look at this graph, we see the perfect index is 100 pre-COVID, and then all of a sudden it drops to 60. So we see this 40-point drop here immediately because of the recession and all kinds of the impact around COVID, businesses shutting down, etc. And then we see the rebound, right? So we see this exponential growth in software development job postings on Indeed. And this is from 2020 to at its peak around, let's say 2022 or so. That was when things were essentially more than double what they were before COVID. Now, a few things to take away from this. One is that at the same time, we have had zero interest rates from the Fed for a long time. What that means is it's basically you're getting paid to take a loan from the government. So if you are in venture capital, this is great because you can just get unlimited funds and put them into startups and get a return. Likewise, if you have $1 million in the bank, you don't want to put it into a 0% interest rate savings account. You're going to lose money due to inflation. And at the same time, all of this money that was being stimulated during COVID started to make a global inflation trend. So we see that the more money that goes into the marketplace, that creates an impact on inflation. The more people that are employed, et cetera, the more demand there is for goods. You see globally that inflation rose, and the United States was no different. So the result is you have to start slowly raising interest rates until finally we're at the point where we're at now, which is roughly around 5% interest rates. Now, at the same time, you see that that trend was happening when the software development postings were peaking. So essentially, as the interest rates rise, the software development, maybe over hiring occurred, and so those two trends together, I think, are gonna pan out over the next several years. And the reason why is that a lot of times the companies that are hiring are trillion-dollar companies that have really no market competition. You could make the argument that if there was better regulation in the United States, that these big tech companies would have been broken up a long time ago. So they do strange things. And one of the strange things they may do is they may hire a bunch of people so that their other trillion-dollar company competitor, because there's only a few, won't be able to hire them. And as a result, you get these weird market distortions. And so that could definitely be a factor as well, as if you really put all these together, we have speculative businesses funded by zero interest rates via venture capital. We also have overhiring due to strange monopoly behavior by big tech companies. And then at the same time, we have the impact of post-COVID. All of those things emerging together created an overhiring, and then we see lots of layoffs. And then currently in 2025, we're seeing down to really almost like COVID level hiring again. And so what may happen is that the surplus hiring that occurred may take a while to pan itself out. And there may just be less openings. Now, let's also talk about some other small factors to bring up. There's been a lot of talk about artificial general intelligence and how software engineering jobs are going to be eliminated. And let me debunk some of that and dive into a little bit. So a little bit about my background. I've been programming since I've been in my really teens and early 20s. Some of it was growing up. I did basic programming, etc., like many people my age. And then as a professional software engineer, I've been developing consistently. So now we're talking 30 years or so programming computers. I've done lots of different languages. Erlang, F Sharp, Python, Rust, Zig, C, Objective C, JavaScript, Bash, et cetera, et cetera. So I've been here for a while and I've seen a lot of these trends, and I also don't have to say certain things to impress big tech companies because I'm self-employed. I can say whatever I want. I'm also an adjunct professor, so I have some insight from that perspective. And my perspective is that it's complete nonsense to say that artificial intelligence in its current stage has really that big of an impact on hiring at all. My use of large language models is that I do use them. I use them daily, but I use them really with my own deep senior level experience with building software. So the big shift I've made is that instead of programming in higher level languages, I've shifted more towards lower level languages because they allow me to write more code in lower level languages. So I've shifted to Rust. I still write code with Bash. I still write code with JavaScript. I still do cloud-based development. And I do think it's helped me improve the speed that I develop software. But still at its core, you need to have somebody who's deeply experienced in the domain to use these systems. There's no way that someone who has zero experience could do the same things that I'm doing. And again, I can say that I can be honest because I have no skin in the game. I'm not trying to, hype up AI or dehype it, or et cetera. The reality is that it's an interesting tool, just like other tools like software engineering books or Stack Overflow, but it's not going to replace people's jobs. All it's going to do is add a small lift to experts. So people like me who are 50 years old, who've been programming their whole life, it's going to make me a little bit more productive. I don't see the scenario where it's going to stop people from being hired. So that's, I think, nonsense. And the only people that are really seeing those kinds of things are people who have no experience or who have skin in the game to sell a fantasy about AI. So let's now talk about other scenarios here, the macroeconomic risk from tariffs. So we see this in 2025 that the current administration of the United States is threatening tariffs and threatening all kinds of different trade wars with China and with Europe and with Canada, et cetera. So one result of that is going to be an increase in inflation. That's the end result of tariffs. So that means that interest rates likely will not go down because the interest rates are set outside of government policy. So whether the president would like interest rates to go down or not, that isn't within his control. So interest rates will actually likely increase, which further will reduce the demand for venture capital. Also, it will increase the demand for groceries, housing, etc. And we likewise see a massive gutting of the government through the Doge initiative, which is, I think most people realize is a farce. It's just gutting the government and firing lots of workers. Those workers are going to have to go somewhere. And if you're firing 200,000, 400,000, 500,000 people, and they're all in the job market, they're also going to be looking for work too. So just that act in itself could lead to a recession. So we've already got a problem with the overhiring that occurred in the software development postings from post-COVID, strange policies that let monopolies really run rampant, free money for VCs that have created companies that maybe don't need to exist. And then on top of that, we have rising interest rates and potentially a deep recession at the same time. So there is trouble on the horizon. And even further, the other negative news is that there's a lot of evidence that there's no real ROI for the investment that was made in AI, and there's no protective moat for it. So we see this with OpenAI, Anthropic, DeepSeek, Quinn, Mistral, Hugging Face. We see just unlimited Gemini from Google, unlimited competition. What happens? Well, if we were thinking about this from the perspective of a consumer, we would love it if there was unlimited competition for eggs. Unfortunately, the eggs seem to keep going up higher and higher. But in the case of AI, if there's unlimited competition, that means all profit will eventually go to zero. Very likely, we'll see a scenario play out with large language models that it'll be like Linux versus Windows. Over 90% of the global infrastructure runs on Linux, so it's a commodity. Likewise with Windows, only people who are either unaware of how Linux works or have some kind of specialized need are going to run Windows in production versus Linux. You're going to run the free version because it's good enough. So the main takeaway here is that we have some real problems. Now let's talk about the opportunities. One of the opportunities is, if you are already employed, is to focus on value-based skills. I would say talking to your manager or listening to what the executives in your company are saying, or listening to people that are hyping technology that say programming jobs are dead, etc. These are not credible sources because they have alternate interests from you. But if you, as a software engineer, focus on value, that's where you can really make the most of a situation like this. And so, what do I mean by value? Well, look at things that really make an impact. And one of them is Rust. I see that Rust could lower maybe 30 to 70% energy consumption. This could really make a role as well in cost. If you're able to build things that are 100 times cheaper or 1,000 times cheaper, this would be a great skill to have. And so maybe take the next several years and focus on deep Rust skills and getting really into the weeds on, like, how do I become an expert at something that can save a company 100 or 1,000 times what they're currently spending. That would be a great use of your time. So this is really focusing on value-based skills. Also focusing on things that are really hard. The more difficult something is, but also in demand, the more likely you're going to have a competitive advantage. Another one is to think about, maybe you should start a single person company. A single person company really is pretty viable nowadays, because you can, if you're a senior developer as well, some of the stuff that's happening with large language models will help you develop codes faster. A lot of the cloud computing means that you can develop something on your laptop. A lot of the infrastructure is already there for you, like payment systems. And so this might be something you start to focus on, is, why don't I just start my own business? And this is an opportunity as well. Another one is to think about how to move to lower cost areas as well. So the lower cost area could be a lower cost area in the United States. That could be one place to figure out how to save money and to also use your salary in a way that's going to give you the best ROI. Likewise, maybe even moving to a different country. Could you pick different countries that have a great standard of living, a lower cost? This could be a good opportunity in an environment where you see that the inflation is going to go rampant and there will be a recession. And a few different things to think about would be, can you focus on performance critical, like things that save money when people are tightening their belts? Also, can you build business models that leverage operational efficiency? Can you personally diversify your revenue streams? Can you figure out ways to maybe build an application or build a consulting practice or build some other kind of opportunity? And then how can you actually capitalize on market inefficiencies? One thing that is interesting is that you see when there's instability in firing, for example, what could happen is that there could be more demand for consultants because they overfire people. They start to notice that there's real problems. And so that could be a good opportunity for being a consultant. So there's, I think, some opportunities in the darkness that's coming with the software development postings. And those are the things that I've seen work in the past. And I think some of those opportunities are available for people, but a lot of it is really going to focus on, can you be a critical thinker and focus on skills that really will add value to organizations and also add value to yourself so that you're able to extract the value, not just give the value to an organization.